Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Non-Scripted Ramblings. I'm Kendall Richardson. Thanks so much for joining me. We are here today to talk about episode 6 of WandaVision, all new Halloween Spooktacular. This is an episode I've been looking forward to for a long time, mostly for the fact that we finally get to see these outfits that were teased in the first trailers for WandaVision a while back now, of Scarlet Witch, Wanda herself actually in her comic book costume, Vision in his comic book costume. More on that later, but I was really really excited about just seeing them in that and seeing her with the crown sort of thing that she wears that I really like. So that was a treat. But yeah, so this is now a 90s sitcom episode, which is fully ripping off Malcolm in the Middle, and I love it. Paying homage in such a nice, funny, charming way, really recreating a lot of the beats and the vibes of Malcolm in the Middle from back in the day, which I think started in the 90s and then went into the 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, those opening credits are just so funny, so cool. That like shaky cam kind of punk rock theme, like I don't know, I really loved that whole vibe. The fact that the twins are narrating to the camera for this, I really adored, because like one of the cool things about Malcolm in the Middle was Frankie Muniz as Malcolm talking to the audience through the camera. That fourth wall breaking, I really love it. So that was a real treat to see that here in this episode. But the kind of 90s references really seem to kind of stop there. I don't know, there's a few things to unpack from this episode. One thing about the credits we should talk about before I move on is the fact that, I don't know if everyone noticed, but Agnes was wearing like those cheesy like tracky pants from like the 90s, 2000s that have like, words written on the bum and stuff. And so she had the word naughty written on her bum. I feel weird saying bum on a video on YouTube. But basically, I don't know, maybe that's a hint at her true nature. I don't know. We have been theorizing she's Agatha Harkness, so I don't know if that's kind of a teeny tiny blink and you'll miss it nod. So I just wanted to point that out first off. I might just jump straight into the Agnes stuff while I'm on that then, just because what better time to segue into it. Yeah, I mean, there was a really interesting scene I guess the only really scene involving Agnes in this episode was when Vision encounters her, and she's out on the outskirts of Westview, and she's stopped in her tracks. She's lost, she says. Vision's like, "You're lost in the town that you grew up in? This is strange." He doesn't say this is strange, but it is strange. And then she's fully just not with it, and then he did what he did to Norm last week and snaps her out of it. And then we get a look at the real Agnes, apparently. The real Agnes. I'm still, look, after this whole exchange, I'm still kind of not buying it, but I'm getting away from the Agatha Harkness thing slowly, but there's still all of these things that are keeping me in, like the naughty thing, the fact that she's dressed as a witch, the fact that she's like cackling hysterically in this moment of lucidity that's just, I feel like it's just her mind kind of struggling to comprehend the situation. She says all is lost, whether or not that's referring to just, her and the residents of Westview in general, or if maybe her plan of whatever she's really doing, maybe she got stuck unintentionally in Westview, trapped under Wanda's thumb in this whole thing. So maybe that's what she means by that. I don't know. I'm probably reading a lot too much into it. What do you guys think? Let me know. But yeah, that was a really interesting scene, and another chilling reminder of the fact that Vision does not remember anything from before Westview, because Agnes mentions the Avengers. So, like, you're an Avenger. Are you here to help us? And he's like, I don't. What's an Avenger? I have no idea. And then she's confused as to why he doesn't know. And then she tells him that he's dead. And Vision is, obviously shocked by this. And then she's just screaming dead, dead, dead at him over and over again, which was very unsettling to watch. But yeah, that was a really fascinating look into Agnes. Maybe is she faking? Was that legitimately her? Who knows? I do really like that we get more of Vision being autonomous, being aware of everything. Because, he starts off the episode in Wanda's sort of sitcom thing, like, she's got him doing what she wants to do. He mentions the fact that it was the only thing in his wardrobe was the costume, because she's like, oh, thanks for humouring me and putting this silly costume on. And then he's like, well, it was the only thing in the wardrobe. And then she kind of looks at him, and then he just carries on with the, the 90s sitcom script, essentially. And then he lies about going on neighborhood watch, even though, she's like, well, we're supposed to be, she's like, you're not supposed to be going out. Like, I didn't think you had any plans. Like, she's genuinely kind of confused as to what's going on. And Vision's like, all sitcom-y, just be like, oh, now's the time, perfect time for me to go undercover and do the neighborhood watch thing and go out and join the fellows doing that. And Pietro steps up and does the babysitting thing of the twins, I suppose, or the Maximoff family, spending their first Halloween together. So Wanda's disappointed that Vision's not there, but unbeknownst to her, Vision is actually taking the time to do some serious neighborhood watching and going and checking out and investigating what's actually going on in the rest of Westview. Big thing to mention this episode, this is the first time we see kids, apart from the twins. This is the first time we see kids, and they are rampant everywhere. There are children everywhere, all through Westview, all dressed up in Halloween costumes. I don't know if that's just to keep up with the facade of the sitcom and the fact that Wanda wanted, kid trick-or-treating is a huge part for, people's childhoods, so maybe that's why she wanted kids there, or the fact that is she keeping them away somewhere? And like Pietro comments on this when they're having I'll get to this later, but they're having a conversation about, he's like, what do you do? What have you done with the kids? What have you been doing with them? Like he mentions it, he comments on it. So it's interesting to see that they're finally popping up. But Vision, does some very interesting detective work and learns that, I guess the further away from Wanda, the less of a hold, I guess, in terms of the power of the narrative of the sitcom is less the further you get away from Wanda, because the people on the outskirts of Westview, away from where Wanda is in the center of town, are motionless. They're all dressed up in Halloween costumes, but they're motionless. Then there was that one woman who was at the front of her house, and this was like one of the most unsettling parts of the episode, and there were a few of those in this episode, but she's out the front and she's putting up Halloween decorations, and she's just going back and forth, and the sitcom music's going in the background while you're watching this creepy as shit thing happening in front of you, and it's so creepy, and I loved it. I love that contrast between the oh my god, what the hell am I looking at, and the cheerful sort of zaniness of the music. Like, it's and kind of an understated sitcom score, but it's there and it works perfectly to really drive it home. And then that single tear that just rolls down her face, because clearly she's caught between the two worlds of the real her underneath it all and the sitcom verse, and because she's so, I don't know, she's not so close to where Wanda is, she's just in this weird limbo and she can't stop doing what she's doing, and a tear manages to, like, her pain and suffering must be so that a tear manages to break through. Like, that's powerful stuff. I really like that. And then the fact that, Vision sees all the kids on the outside of town all frozen. He tries to talk and communicate with them all, nothing. And then that's when he runs into Agnes. And then after that, he he tells her that he's gonna go do something about it. I'm gonna get outside of this and make them help us get out or fix this, you know. Yeah, and it's just intense. But I loved it. Anyway, before I get on to the stuff with the end of the episode, I want to go back a bit and talk about, let's see, what else can I talk about? I guess we can talk about Pietro now. Uncle P, as he's known as in this episode. Yeah, I love Evan Peters so much. I mean, I've always been a fan of his and everything that he does, especially American Horror Story. I love his work on that show, but really, really cool to see him in this context as Quicksilver. Now, my theory here is I don't think this is X-Men versus Quicksilver. I don't think so at all. And I say that because one reason, and then I have an alternate theory to posit as well, but one reason I say that is because throughout the entire episode, Pietro is aware of what's going on. He's aware of the situation he's in, the sitcom stuff, what's happening to the residents of Westview, you know, everything. He knows, and he knows Wanda's in control, right? Or he, you know, at least thinks Wanda's in control. I mean, we pretty much do know she's in control now anyway, but, you know, there's that little nagging doubt in the back of our mind. But yeah, he knows. And then he also knows, you know, he knows certain things about Wanda and the situation without having to, like, ask or inquire. Like, he knows Vision's died already, for most importantly. And the fact that he's not weirded out by the fact that he has a sister, because I can't remember off the top of my head, and please comment below if I'm wrong, the fact that I don't think we're ever introduced to Wanda Maximoff in the X-Men films of recent years. Unless she was in Days of Future Past, because there is that scene when they go to Pietro's house to get him to do the heist thing, and set up that really awesome scene that we all love with the slow motion speed going on. But I can't remember if there was a younger, like another sister in there, or like a sibling with him. I haven't seen that movie in a while, so I apologize. But yeah, I don't know, I just think, and then the fact that he says, he specifically mentions the fact that he was shot. He says he got shot. I'm paraphrasing when I say that. He says he got shot. Next thing you know, Wanda was calling for him, and he came. Like, he came to Westview because she needed him. So whether or not Wanda's in control or not, either way, you know, Quicksilver's here, Pietro's here. Whether or not she I don't know, the fact that, like, last week's episode was so much time was spent on building up Pietro's arrival. Maybe Wanda had something to do with that. The fact that he kept coming up and he was constantly in her thoughts. Maybe that power manifested itself and brought this Pietro from a different universe. But yeah, the fact that he got shot, specifically, like, tells me that this is not the Pietro from the X-Men universe, because last time we saw him was in X-Men Apocalypse a couple of years ago, and I don't remember him being shot, and I'm pretty sure I'm not remembering that incorrectly. I'm fairly certain he didn't get shot at the end, but he says here, I got shot, and then you were calling for me. So, and you know, as we know, Pietro in the MCU was shot and killed in Age of Ultron. So, I don't know, I think this is just an alternate universe separate from the two existing ones that we know, and he just happens to look like Evan Peters. Especially because, yeah, he has all these memories of Sokovia and stuff, which I thought was an interesting touch too, and another point to drive home the fact that he's not her Pietro, the fact that they were both remembering things from their childhoods, but neither of them connected on the same memory. Neither of them remembered the same thing the same way, which I thought was, yeah, another interesting point to make. But, yeah, there's also the theory, I've seen people talking about online, whether or not Pietro is either Mephisto, or he's just not Pietro at all, and someone is impersonating him from this other universe. I don't think that's the case. I mean, that would be really interesting if it was, and it would explain why he knows so much about what's actually going on, and why he was kind of, you know, asking Wanda all these questions and telling her how impressed he is, you know, because so they have this really brilliant conversation that was one of the highlights of the episode for me towards the end, where he's asking her, you know, how did she do it? And she says she doesn't remember exactly how it started. And, you know, and then, you know, they're talking about the controlling of the kids and the townspeople, and Wanda's like, you think it's morally wrong, don't you? Or do you think that's wrong? Or you don't think that's wrong? I'm you know, frazzled on the exact terminology phrasing she uses, but she is positing the morality of the whole thing that she's doing to Pietro, and then Pietro goes, no, I'm impressed. The fact that you were able to go from, you know, putting nightmares in people's heads and, you know, making red sparks coming out your fingers to doing this, like, he's impressed. So, yeah, and the fact that he also knows her abilities, this specifically calls to mind this alternate Pietro that I think it's not X-Men Pietro, it's, yeah, or MCU, it's, yeah. Yeah, so there's that option, I think. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But that was a really great conversation, and the fact that Pietro's, you know, was poking and prodding, and we got to a point of, like, Wanda just talking about how, like, alone she felt, and how she felt an endless nothingness, you know, the fact that this is how consumed by her grief she was at the beginning of this whole thing, you know, 9-10 days ago prior to this moment, that this whole thing just manifested itself after she stole Vision somehow, I suppose. I don't know, we still have clearly more to learn and to find out, but it was really nice to get a gauge on Wanda's psyche a bit more, even though it was only a little bit more. It was still something. I thought that was really, really cool. A nice little Easter egg, which I didn't pick up on straight away, and I like after my first viewing, but after, you know, before my second viewing, I had a friend point this out to me, and I thought it was awesome. So there's a scene where you know, the boys say like one of the twins says kick ass, in response to something Uncle Pietro says, like he's like, I feel the need for speed, and he's like, kick ass or something, like he says kick ass before that anyway, and then Wanda specifically reiterates and says kick ass, like questioning the phrase, like, why are you saying kick ass? Why is my son saying kick ass for? And then, of course, epiphany moment, Evan Peters was in Kick Ass with Aaron Taylor-Johnson. Both Quicksilvers were in that movie together, and I'm so annoyed that I didn't realise it the first time I watched this episode, and it took me until afterwards, but it's okay, at least I realised it at all. I thought that was a nice little, you know, cheeky little nod, a cheeky little reference to the Kick-Ass film that they were in together. The costuming, as I started mentioning earlier, how excited I was to see it all, and it was, like I said, really, really great, really awesome. Wanda explained them away as, well, she explained hers away as being a Sokovian fortune teller, which I thought was a nice little bit of world building. Apparently that's what their fortune tellers dress like, with that interesting headdress going on. I would like to see a picture of a real one in the MCU somehow, some way. That'd be really cool. Vision says Wanda has a thing for Mexican wrestlers, which is why Vision is dressed the way he is, so there's that explanation. And then the other really cool thing that we didn't see in the trailers in regards to costumes was Quicksilver and the twins, Billy and Tommy, their costumes. So they're all comic book inspired, obviously. So Pietro's costume is the Quicksilver costume from the comics. And Tommy is who is now kind of coming into his own as Speed, his superhero alter ego. He was, you know, clearly taking after his uncle and dressed up as Quicksilver for Halloween, whereas Billy, who is starting to develop his powers as Wiccan, which is his superhero identity, his outfit, costume he was wearing was also taken from the comics in the episode. I thought that was really, really cool. So I'm wondering if next week's episode, if it's going to be sitcom based, which I think it will be. I think we've got at least one more sitcom-y episode until this whole thing falls apart on itself. Yeah, whether or not that we'll get to see them as teenagers, and then after this whole thing is done, are we setting up Young Avengers, like with Cassie Lang and yeah, I don't know who else at this point. I'm sure there's other characters, you know. But anyway, I digress a little. Yeah, so the costuming stuff was really, really cool. I really, really liked it. There was also a nice background nod to The Incredibles and The Parent Trap. There were two movies being shown at the cinema. This was the only time of the episode I questioned the time period of the sitcom because, as I said earlier, it's inspired by Malcolm in the Middle, and that started airing in the 90s and finished in the 2000s, so maybe that's how they're able to get away with it. But, you know, Incredibles came out in the 2000s, and The Parent Trap, or at least the remake of The Parent Trap, came out in the late 90s, so yeah, I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, but, you know, obviously they're there because they're movies that kind of loosely reflect Wanda's life as things I want to do. You know, superhero family, and, you know, Parent Trap twins, you know, going on, you know, Wanda and Pietro, and now Billy and Tommy, so there is that. Speaking of things reflecting Wanda's life, the ad this week was super peculiar. It was a stop-motion animation ad, which was pretty well done, for, where is it? Where did I write it down? I thought I wrote it down here. Yes, I did. Looking at my notes, sorry. Yo Magic. So it's kind of like a, you know, if you're from Australia, like Yogo sort of, you know, kid-friendly yogurt sort of dessert little snack thing. Yeah, and so this was interesting because, you know, the phrase of it was snack for survivors, and then this ad goes out of its way to show this young kid decomposing and dying of hunger because he can't open the Yo Magic. And I think that kind of speaks to the fact that you shouldn't be able to, like, well, despite having magic at your disposal, you still can't prevent death. So, you know, because of the fact that Wanda lost Vision the first time. And maybe this is also to say that her magic can't keep him alive forever. It's going to run out at some point, maybe. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking there, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of all I was able to kind of extrapolate from the ad this week. Not too much to go on. As for outside of the Hex, let's start a petition for the hatred of Hayward in the MCU, because screw that guy. My goodness. What a douchebag. Just up front, what a douche. Like, really, like, can you be more of an asshole? Yeah, I mean, he didn't want to listen to Monica at all. As soon as, you know, as soon as she started questioning his motives and questioning his, you know, decisions that he was making in this whole thing, he was just like, nah, don't like you, don't want a bar of this. He even mentions, he's like, you've been gunning for these superpowered people this whole time, and it's, you know, affecting your input and ability in this program, essentially. He even name drops Carol Danvers to really drive the point home. He's like, yes, I know your history with her, blah, blah, blah. And then he tries to guilt her and Darcy and Jimmy about the fact that, you know, well, specifically Monica. He tries to guilt Monica over the fact that she was gone for 5 years and didn't have to deal with the awfulness of you know, half of the world's population disappearing. And then he even has the goal to say, I'm glad you weren't here when your mother died. Like, and the fact that, you know, because clearly you don't have the stones to run or be a part of this organization. And I was like, whoa, dude, calm the hell down. Are you kidding me? Are you really kidding me right now? Like, really kidding me? Like, that was just, no, that was too... And then the fact that immediately after that, you know, basically gives them all the sack, and tells them to get lost. And then I love the fact that they don't do that, and they, you know, sneak into this, you know, other part of the base camp, and then Darcy immediately hacks in, finds out a couple of important things worth mentioning. One, that Monica's DNA is changing on a cellular, molecular level, like it's rewriting itself. Every time she's gone in the hex, it's come out different. So she went in once and she's come out, so the fact that she's passed the barrier twice, it's altered it every time. So that's intense to find out. Maybe this is how she becomes Photon, her, you know, superhero precursor to her becoming Captain Marvel, I believe, in the comics. So there's that theory. Also, the other two important things to note, the fact that Hayward is tracking Vision. When we see this kind of schematic, like, map thing, like, that's clearly got all these dots of, like, where these people are, there's this big red dot, and you think it's Wanda. And then immediately they're like, nope, that's Vision, because he's tracking vibranium, and Vision is made out of vibranium, basically, as we found out in Age of Ultron. Yeah, so he's tracking Vision, and then Darcy does some more digging and learns that basically Hayward is working on this cataract weapons program. That was interesting. Weapons initiative, or just a weapon called cataract or cataract. There's something else there. There's something else about him we don't know, and it's driving me nuts. I don't like him. I don't like him at all. So then basically Jimmy and Monica end up going off to meet Monica's aerospace engineer friend that she mentioned last week, because he or she or they have a way of getting Monica safely into the hex without affecting her molecularly. So yeah, they go off to meet, and that's when Darcy ends up staying behind and finding out about the cataract thing. Not before, you know, Vision decides to start coming through the hex, and this raises more questions because, you know, he breaks through, but the hex has still got a hold of him and is tearing him apart. So the two theories there are, one, can Vision actually survive outside the hex, which is something people have been asking since we found out about, you know, the fact that A, she's reanimated him, and B, that they're inside this anomaly going on. So we don't know. Because then the other option is, you know, can he not survive without Wanda, or without her, like, her influence, sort of, like, I can't remember where I was going with this, bugger. I've lost my train of thought. I think that, it's most likely that he can't survive outside the hex, but I feel like it's, the hex is trying to keep a hold of Vision. The hex doesn't want to let Vision go. So I don't think it could also be that, like, not just he can't survive, it's the hex refuses to let him survive outside. So, you know, if he had his way, maybe he could, but we don't know. Interesting that Darcy, like, it was great that she tried to help him. She was shouting out for them to help him, but I'm like, what can they do in this situation apart from watch Vision disintegrate, which was, again, super unsettling. Like, why? Leave Vision alone, for God's sake. He's been through too much, okay? That was unsettling to watch. But yeah, nice intentions, Darcy, but I just don't know what they could have done in that situation. And then Billy, you know, uses his new telekinetic powers to find out that Vision is in trouble, tells Wanda, and then Wanda uses her powers to expand the hex. And this is basically where our episode ends. With the hex expanded, it has absorbed the entire S.w.o.r.D. camp, including our beloved Darcy, who is now inside the hex, leaving me to think that maybe, considering the other big thing Kat Dennings is known for is Two Broke Girls, which was a sitcom, maybe we're going to get to see a reference to her character Max from Two Broke Girls next week. I don't know. That would be excellent if they did that. I don't know if that's going to work because next week is technically supposed to be our 2000s sitcom, and Two Broke Girls started in the 2010s, so I don't know. Either way, could be fun, could be cool. Because we don't see what she turns into when she goes on the other side. We see all the S.w.o.r.d agents and all their vehicles turn into carnival objects and hot air balloons, and they're all, clowns and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, Hayward and a couple of his goonies get away in a lone jeep, and and then Monica and Jimmy are off to meet whoever it is. Hopefully Reed Richards, because I love the idea that this could be the introduction of Reed Richards into the MCU. People have been theorizing online that it could be him. Who knows? Literally anything is possible in this situation, people. We can only hope and pray. But yes, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this episode of WandaVision, which was a hell of a lot, considering I've been here for 31 minutes, so thank you for sticking with me. Another unsettling thing to just quickly mention was the fact that Quicksilver, we got to see him all corpseified and bullet holed and all this and that for a second. That was not okay. And then the other little reference to Mephisto in this episode was the fact that Pietro referred to the twins as devil spawn, and he specifically says unleash hell, devil spawn. So that was interesting. Think of that what you will. Whether he's Mephisto or Mephisto is involved in some way, or it was just something to throw us off like a red herring, who knows. Well, hopefully we'll find out soon. Also Herb, I should mention too quickly. Herb became sort of aware for a moment, like Agnes did last week, and he specifically asked Wanda if she wanted anything changed with what he was doing or they were all doing. So that is also worth mentioning. I think that is all I have to mention though in this episode. I'm just looking at my notes just in case I don't want to forget anything. Nope, that's it. Yep, done. Episode 6 of WandaVision, all new Halloween Spooktacular. That is my review, my ramble, my discussion, my theories. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please like, subscribe to Fred the Alien so you don't miss any more of my MCU related content, because we have got a big year ahead of us, people. We have a release date now for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, March 19, the week after WandaVision finishes. Hello. So thank you again so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I've been Kendall Richardson, and you've just experienced non-scripted ramblings.